Would you believe me if I told you that these two forms have the same measurements? Well, they actually do, and they could not be more different looking. Hi, I'm Allison, the founder of Beatrice Forms, and in this edition of Form Tours, I'm going to help you get a better fit with your handmade garments by helping you to understand your shape better. Let's get started. This week, I spotted these two forms, and what's so interesting about them is they have almost the same measurements. The people who scanned for these forms fit into the same size scan clothing, and it just was so interesting to me because their shapes are so different. So what is the same about these two forms? Well, for one, their measurements are very similar. Their bust measurements are almost identical. Their waist measurements are exactly the same, and their hip measurements are fairly close. This form has a slightly bigger hip. The other thing that is the same is the torso length. So from high point shoulder to just above the knee, these forms are very similar. And that's kind of where the similarities end. Now you can tell just by looking at the shape that their back shape and their postures are really different. And if we were just to compare these forms by measurement, we would say they would be very similar. But as you can see, this form on the right-hand side, it has a very curved back, okay? The posture is also very different. So this posture is a little more upright, and then this posture is kind of a little bit pelvis forward, right? With the curved back. And we see this all the time. It is a very, very common posture. We see it more commonly as people age, but I also see young people with this posture as well. Another thing that is different here is the waist. So when people scan for a Beatrice form, we have them put some waist elastic at it usually settles around natural waist. And it's very interesting because these folks who scanned, this person had a very level waist elastic, and this person has a more angled waist elastic. And I think that kind of corresponds with shape and posture to kind of give, you know, where the natural waist will sit. So like I said, this one is more of an angle and this one is more straight. Another thing that is different between these forms is where the fullest bust lines up. So I have their height adjusted, and I check this with a level that the high point shoulder is at the same height here. And but you can see that the fullest bust on this form as compared to this one, they are different. This one is a little lower, and also the shape of the chest has a different angle. So, you know, even if you have the same bust size and the same height and the same torso length as another individual, where your bust, waist, and hip fall could be very different. And one of the final things I wanted to point out is the belly shape, and we see all sorts of shapes. And even though these people have the same size waist, their belly shape is different. So this one has more of, I don't know, just kind of not protruding as much, and this one has a little more protrusion. But also consider the shape of the posture. You know, if you have a more forward pelvis and rounded back, sometimes the belly can just sit out farther. So it's not about girth so much, it's more about the position in the body architecture and how it relates to your frame. So why am I sharing this with you? How is this going to help your sewing and for you to get a better fit? Well, body shape and posture has so much to do with getting a great fit. Because it's kind of hard to quantify these things with measurements, it presents a bit of a challenge. Like, let's say if you're fitting somebody remotely, or you're drafting with a book, drafting your own patterns, and you're just putting in measurements, it can be hard to capture this, right? And as you can see, if you look at where the apex point is in the back, so the farthest out point for this form, it's definitely kind of, you know, set back here in the shoulder blades, whereas in this form, it's not set so far back. So if you can imagine a garment, like let's say a jacket, hanging from the shoulders and coming down, and gravity's pulling it down, You see where gravity is going to pull the fabric and where it's going to hang. And then imagine the same thing on this shape. If you were doing, let's say, a dress or anything else, blouse hanging from the shoulders, this is going to make a huge difference in how much length you need back here, how you're going to do your shaping. You may use a completely different approach with this shape versus that shape, yet they have the same girth measurements. So, you know, it's surprising, but then when you see this physically in 3 dimensions, it becomes very apparent. And that's why I wanted to show it to you. So I notice in running this business and, you know, teaching people how to drape and make patterns that, you know, sewists are really hung up on girth. And girth is important because you want to have enough fabric to get around your body, right? But girths will only get you so far because, as you can see, your body's architecture and the way those girths line up with each other in the vertical space, that can make a huge difference. So by the way, these particulars about your body's architecture, the way it's shaped and how the posture is aligned, this is the main reason I started this company, because I was struggling so much with that, with fitting myself, with my rounded back, with my forward head, with my asymmetry in my shoulders. So I wanted to point this out to you because it really gave me a lot of headaches for many, many years, and it was such a struggle. And I found it difficult to capture those asymmetries, those unique properties of my shape with traditional measurements, with the traditional approach. And that's why I started this company where we make forms from 3D body scans. So you might be wondering right now, how can I figure out what my body shape is? Like, we all kind of think we know, but maybe we don't totally know. I know that was the case for me. I would start with taking some full body photos, and it can help to have a partner to help you do this, but to take pictures of you standing straight forward, right? And then also at the profile. And you want to take these photos with the camera not at an extreme angle. It's better if the lens is straight on. And then you can study these photos and see, do I have asymmetry in my shoulders? You know, what is the shape of my profile? You know, what is the shape of my back? Where is my head? Is it kind of in alignment with my spine? Is it more forward? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And you would be surprised how far some photos can take you. And then once you have those photos, another aid can be taking those photos into some kind of digital editing program. I'm on the Mac platform and I use Preview, and you can just take, draw lines, and you can draw vertical lines that are perpendicular to the floor, and then you can draw some horizontal lines that are parallel with the floor, and then you can line them up to your shoulders. You could do, you know, profile, divide your body in half and see, because like some people, their whole posture is kind of back or it's kind of forward, and you can kind of see that alignment. You could, do just the general reference lines that you might see on a dress form. So you could do fullest bust, fullest hips, and you could, find a waist position. It might be interesting. You can take a picture with your pants on, like a really well-fitting pair of pants, and you can see where the waistline falls. Because most people don't, when they have a pair of pants or a skirt that fits really well, usually the waistband isn't perfectly level. Some people have a level one, but most people angle it down in the front or up in the front. And so you can kind of see that from the side, and then you can draw a reference line there. And all of these things will help you to kind of analyze your shape and give you a better picture so you can make those adjustments and accommodate that for your sewing. Of course, you could always put these lines on your Beatrice form. So one of the things that I always recommend that clients do when they first get their Beatrice is to use a plumb bob and actually mark those lines as it relates to gravity, right? Because gravity is pulling on the fabric that make up your clothes, right? And so we want to mark that. So you can kind of find a center front, center back, maybe a a side seam line, that's plumb. And then same with the horizontal balance lines, we like to call them. You can mark that on your form. And so all of these approaches will help you to study your shape and learn about that, because now you can do something about it, right? If you know you have a curved back, I have a curved back. This person has a curved back. It's actually, I would probably say 75 to 80% of the scans that are submitted to us have some curvature of the back and the forward head. There are so many things you can do about that to make clothes fit you better and feel more comfortable. Because if you don't accommodate for this, your clothing is gonna be choking you. I know I'm always talking about that because that's like my #1 pet peeve because of my fitting challenges, but I hope that doing some of these exercises might help you to identify what is going on. Why are my clothes, why do they keep falling back on my shoulders? Well, it could be because of this alignment and not having that room or the shaping in the back to really hold that garment in place, okay? So I hope that you learned something today. I hope that it was helpful. I know that fitting can be really challenging, and I feel your pain. I have been there. I just really encourage you to just go a step deeper, take it beyond just the general fitting corrections that you see in the various sewing websites. There's more there, and I promise this will help. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.